Good morning, fellow film nerds. My name is Colton Merck, and you are watching the first ever episode of Merck Film Productions for my Film 440 Directors and Stars Spike Lee class. I will be examining where characters morally stand within the situations they are put in the films Do the Right Thing and 25th Hour. But first, what makes an auteur director is someone who is both an author and a director in film through the imprint left by one's personal style. An auteur's style correlates personal experiences with fantasy and creative thoughts to create a movement that will leave an impact on society and our history. One specific Spikeism I caught in Lee's work is the constant use of morality. In every film, the characters are morally challenged either by themselves or by someone else, and we see how anger and depression can cause people to knowingly do morally bad things to people they love.
And that's the Taruk root.
Spike Lee's 1989 drama comedy, Do the Right Thing, focuses on a single day involving racially diverse people living and working in a lower class neighborhood. The plot focuses on a social class, race, and how people's moral decisions have a direct effect on how people interact with each other. Even though every character faces moral dilemmas within their neighborhood, Mookie, played by Spike Lee, Sal, played by Danielle, and Pino, played by John Turturro, are continuously trying to figure out what is morally right in relation to culture and racism. The trio branches off into three different moral dilemmas. One who wants to get paid for doing very little work.
What do we pay Mookie for? He don't even work.
Another who wants to live in a more Italian neighborhood.
Maybe we could... Can we sell this and open up a new one in our own neighborhood?
And the final does not want to incorporate any African American decor in his pizzeria, even though the majority of his customers are not Italian.
Hey, Sal, how come you got no brothers on the wall here?
You want brothers on the wall? Get your own place. You can do what you want to do.
Sal is an Italian father of two who owns a pizzeria shop and runs it with his two sons. At times, Sal can be surly towards customers, employees, and his sons, but overall he is a very caring, hard-working man that has owned the same pizzeria for the last 25 years. His morals tend to focus on caring for the environment around his shop, having Mayor clean the sidewalk, making his customers happy, and giving people the benefit of the doubt, like Mookie constantly being late. His morals change after he fills with anger due to bugging out and Radio Raheem causing a disturbance in his outside of his pizzeria. Vulgar language is used by Sal, which ultimately leads to the burning of his establishment and the death of Radio Raheem. In the end, we see remorse in the way Sal overreacted, but we also sense the shock and anger in Sal's eyes due to the betrayal of his community. Next, we have Pino. This is Sal's oldest child who is a racist Italian American. He hates being one of the last Italian Americans in the neighborhood and stresses selling the shop and moving his family to a neighborhood with his type of people. But this cannot be done because all the pizza shops there are already ran by Italian Americans. So Pino constantly bullies his brother, Vito, played by Richard Edson, because he is the younger brother and Mookie's good friend. Pino has a very racist montage scene that he has said was very hard for him because of how morally wrong it was, but he knew it served a very important purpose. For Pino, his morals do not change throughout the film. If anything, his racism and hatred towards other races grew due to the outcomes of disturbance by the communities and his family pizzeria being burnt to the ground. Next up, we have Mookie, played by Spike Lee and nonetheless the director himself. He is the main protagonist, a young black man who is considered lazy and works at Sal's Pizzeria. He is irritated by the flights of stairs he has to climb when delivering pizzas and the lack of appreciation he receives from the other workers. But he's trying to save money so he can move out of his sister's place. He is morally empathetic towards everyone in the neighborhood, but is constantly trying to convince Vito to stick up for himself and fight back when Pino bullies him. Mookie is also constantly butting heads with Pino because of Pino's attitudes, constantly saying he's late, and Pino's hatreds towards blacks. The love for him within the community is high until friends start to second guess his loyalty when he always seems to defend Sal's Pizzeria. This eventually changes when he goes against the morals he preaches after Radio Raheem is killed by local law enforcement. In shock of his friend's death, Mookie goes against everything he says in a morally right, choosing hate instead of love by smashing Sal's front window at the pizzeria. Even though Mookie's intentions are good, he is morally wrong when it comes to the majority of the things he does. Mookie's emotions and ideas didn't change the following day. He demanded his money and told Sal how everything will work out for him. The insurance will cover the place and he will be able to rebuild. Spike Lee's 2002 drama crime film 25th Hour paints a portrait of Monty Brogan's, played by Edward Norton, life in 24 hours. Adapted from David Benoff's novel, a man who has been charged with drug possession experiences his last days of freedom in a heightened state before serving out a 7-year jail sentence. Trying to find peace by tying up loose ends, Monty spends the remainder of his time with his father, James Brogan, played by Brian Cox, his beautiful girlfriend, Naturella, played by Rosario Dawson, one of his two best friends, Frank Slaughter, played by Barry Pepper, and last but not least, his second best friend, Jacob Elinsky, played by Philip Hoffman. And we cannot forget his loving dog. The main protagonist, Monty, has been on the wrong side of the law ever since high school. He had a scholarship to a private school for basketball, but ended up getting kicked out for selling marijuana to fellow classmates. In learning about his track record and continuing down the path of drugs, we learn the moral placement is fairly low towards the people who mean the dearest to him. By not realizing at an early age the consequences of dealing with drugs, he got comfortable and went from selling marijuana to heroin, meaning the charges are higher. Having to come to terms with his actions, early in the film, Monty continuously blames everyone for what has happened. It isn't until he goes to dinner with his father, James, that he finally starts to realize it is mainly his fault. Monty then retreats to the bathroom where he notices writing on a mirror saying, "Fuck you," immediately breaking the fourth wall in an intense conversation with himself. He blames every person and everything in a formulated montage only to conclude the only person he should really be blaming is himself, finally realizing his mistakes. This scene resembles a very famous scene in another one of Spike Lee's films, Do the Right Thing. Even though Monty wants to blame everyone for what has happened to him, he comes to a realization at the end of his rant. James' morality was affected the most when it came to Monty's arrest because he felt like he played a major role in it. From enabling Monty's drug dealing to help keep his bar alive, to the death of their mother and his alcoholic past, James believes he is the reason for his son's choice of occupation. James cannot help but beat himself up by showing his feelings of frustration and guilt when he sneaks drinks of alcohol at dinner when Monty goes to the bathroom.
I should have stopped drinking when your mother
Oh,
passed.
please don't do this.
11-year-old boy with a dead mother and a drunk father. You know, I got no one to blame but
Oh,
myself.
stop.
One way James finds closure with his son going to prison is by taking Monty to prison. Monty continuously declines the offer, but after realizing that what he needed most was his father, he agrees. The end concludes with the narration of James giving Monty an ultimatum which would involve leaving town. The montage captures the idea of continuing to make bad decisions or face them head on. You can either run from the unpleasantness of prison and live an unhappy life, wondering when you will be caught or if you will be caught, or learn from your decisions and make a change and face them head on. Monty's girlfriend, Naturella, was affected by Monty's actions differently than everyone else because she is his significant other. She has to deal with the emotional distance Monty puts on the relationship, the verbal outbursts. Also, Monty's not sure if he can trust her, and the emotional traumatization of dealing with your private space being raided by no one other than the DEA. She is looked at as one of the main suspects in setting Monty up, where she is also repeatedly accused of not only by her boyfriend, but her friends of being the one to set him up. We come to find out it was not her at all that set up Monty. Monty's two friends, Frank and Jacob, experience morality differently by reflecting more on what they should or could have done. Frank regrets not trying to stop Monty, while Jacob tries to prepare for the future years. And this is by visiting, looking after his dad, dog, and so forth, when Monty is released. The emotion of guilt plays a major role with Frank, as he seems to be more emotionally stable through his witty charm and high energy personality compared to Jacob, who is more reserved and soft-spoken. As the film progresses, you can see that both their moral principles start to change and the roles are reversed. Jacob actually turns out to be the tougher one, and Frank is weaker. In Spike Lee's filmography, he truly has not one main genre that he sticks to. He has done comedies, dramas, thrillers, documentaries, television, stage shows, and even a war film. So to say Lee has one type of genre would be saying there is only one planet. There is something that can be said that is constantly repeated in his films, though, and that is his unique camera techniques, such as double dolly shots, double takes, and most importantly, his racist montages. With that being said, that is all I have here on this first episode of Merck's Film Production Films, analysis on Spike Lee and the role morality plays in Do the Right Thing and The 25th Hour. So with that, enjoy. Hope to hear you again.
Yo! Hold up! Time out! Time out! Y'all take a chill. You need to cool that shit out. And that's the double truth. Ruth